President Donald Trump became visibly upset and defensive during a recent Oval Office press session when reporters questioned him directly about his past ties to Jeffrey Epstein. This came after a partial document released last Friday showed his name appearing roughly 38,000 times across those records. The Justice Department under his administration released only about 3 million pages so far, leaving millions more still withheld from public view. When PBS correspondent Jeff Bennett pressed him on those connections and the frequent mentions in the files, Trump reacted sharply. He turned personal, commenting on her appearance rather than addressing the substance. He told her something along the lines of her being a young woman who never smiles and suggested she should smile more. It came across as inappropriate and evasive. He appeared rattled in the moment. Take a look at the exchange. He went on to argue that it was time for the nation to move forward, claiming the released materials showed nothing damaging about him, only what he described as a plot directed against him involving Epstein and others. He insisted the focus should shift to more pressing matters that actually concern everyday Americans. When asked what message he had for the victims and survivors connected to the case, he dismissed the question and lashed out at the reporter, calling her the weakest link in her network's coverage and blaming her for low viewership. He repeated that in all the years he's known her, he's never seen her smile, suggesting it stemmed from dishonesty and that her entire outlet should feel embarrassed for their approach. The conversation then turned to healthcare, but soon more questions followed about his extensive appearances, showing up in around 5,000 separate documents and the serious claims contained within them. Trump pushed back, framing the entire matter as something invented by Democrats and insisting he had been fully cleared. Yet the files include deeply troubling accusations involving him and several figures from his circle. He stressed the need to return to governing the country effectively, noting high weekly viewership numbers for his appearances. He pointed out that during Jeffrey Epstein's lifetime, public interest was minimal, but after his death, it surged. In his view, this remained strictly a Democratic issue, not a Republican one. Republicans, he said, simply needed to prioritize leading the nation well and making sure people recognize their strong performance. Jeff Bennett pressed further during the session, performing solidly by asking pointed follow-ups. She inquired what he would tell the survivors and victims whose personal details, photographs, and names had been disclosed through what many view as a careless and harmful release process by his administration, especially since significant portions of the records remain sealed. Trump responded by suggesting those affected were probably doing okay, because otherwise it would dominate news coverage. He noted complaints from some survivors about heavy redactions, including entire witness statements blocked out completely. When asked if greater openness might have been better or if too much had been revealed, he brushed it aside without clear commitment. CNN's Caitlin Collins followed up strongly, highlighting that several individuals closely associated with him, such as Elon Musk, Howard Lutnick, and others, also appeared repeatedly in the documents. She asked if he had reviewed them personally. Trump replied that he had many responsibilities and hadn't looked closely. He named the two she mentioned and said he was confident they were fine, again pointing out that any real problem would generate huge headlines. Yet these associations are drawing significant attention globally, with leaders elsewhere facing severe consequences for far less documented involvement. One reporter brought up Peter Mandelson, the former British ambassador to the U.S., who recently lost his position in the House of Lords due to his Epstein links, connections that appear less extensive than some tied to Trump. In Britain, public figures often step aside amid such revelations out of a sense of accountability. When asked for his thoughts on Mandelson's resignation after they had met in the Oval Office to discuss trade, Trump said he was aware of who he was, but knew little about the situation and simply called it unfortunate. The discussion also touched on Vladimir Putin, who features multiple times in the Epstein records in contexts linked to Trump's earlier term. Trump had claimed the previous day that he spoke with Putin, who, citing harsh winter conditions in Ukraine, agreed to halt attacks for a set period. According to Trump, this included stopping Iranian-supplied Shahed drones, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and strikes on civilian areas, power facilities, government sites, bus stops, and populated zones in places like Kyiv and various regions. He described Putin as reliable and said the pause would last 1 week. But follow-up questions noted that strikes resumed shortly after, with reports of intense activity right after the supposed end date. Trump maintained that Putin had honored the agreement exactly as discussed, from Sunday to Sunday, and that any relief during extreme cold was worthwhile. He expressed hope for a full end to the conflict, but stood by the claim that the limited truce had been kept. To illustrate the inconsistency, consider what he stated just 24 hours earlier in the same room. He described deep animosity between Zelensky and Putin, acknowledged the war lasting longer than expected, then said he had contacted Putin directly, noting the shared cold snap. Though Ukraine experiences far harsher winters comparable to or exceeding Canada's, he said he requested no missile launches into Kiev or other cities for 1 full week, and Putin consented. This episode is sponsored by Wild Grain. Wild Grain delivers the first subscription service for frozen, ready-to-bake sourdough breads, artisan pastries, and fresh pastas, all prepared in 25 minutes or less at home. It brings the experience of a genuine bakery straight to your kitchen whenever you need it. What stands out is their commitment to clean, recognizable ingredients and a slow fermentation method that supports better digestion while boosting nutritional value and antioxidants. No artificial additives or rushed processes. I've sampled several products, and their sourdough loaves top the list. Warm, crisp on the outside, soft inside, ideal fresh from the oven. They make quick weeknight meals, relaxed weekend breakfasts, or simple comfort food on chilly evenings effortless. The oversized chocolate chunk cookies are another highlight. Delivery is convenient, straight to your door, stored in the freezer, ready in under half an hour. Boxes come fully customizable with options for variety packs, gluten-free selections, vegan choices, and even a protein-focused version, something to suit every preference. Having high-quality baked goods on hand helps beat the winter blues with homemade warmth. If you're looking to enjoy better meals at home this season, I suggest trying Wild Grain. Right now, they're providing listeners with $30 off the first order, plus free croissants included in every box for as long as you stay subscribed. Head to wildgrain.com, Midas to begin, or apply the code Midas at checkout. That's wildgrain.com.Midas for $30 off your opening box and lifetime free croissants. Caitlin Collins continued with sharp questions, and in this instance, her approach was particularly effective. Credit where it's due. She asked what Trump intended when he suggested nationalizing elections. He responded that states essentially function as extensions of the federal government in this area anyway. That view raises serious questions about core constitutional principles. It appears to challenge the First Amendment's protections given past statements dismissing free expression in certain contexts. It questions Second Amendment rights, considering earlier remarks implying threats to those with concealed carry permits. It undermines the Fourth Amendment's safeguards against unwarranted searches by rejecting the need for court-issued warrants. And it directly contradicts the 10th Amendment's reservation of powers to the states, long championed as a matter of states' rights. Yet now the position seems to be that states hold no independent authority in elections. They merely act on federal direction. When pressed on specifics, what exactly did he mean by nationalizing elections in which 15 states needed intervention? Trump emphasized the importance of fair voting processes. He argued that if any state fails to conduct elections properly, federal authorities should step in. He described states as agents carrying out federal duties during vote counting. He cited examples like Detroit, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, and Atlanta as places with long-standing severe issues of corruption and mismanagement in elections. He insisted the federal government must intervene when fraud occurs, pointing to 2020 and claiming ongoing revelations prove widespread rigging. In his view, if local officials cannot handle ballots lawfully and transparently, others should assume control. The Constitution assigns election administration to the states. When that was noted, he continued pressing the same points about those cities and regions. Later, in a separate moment, he referred to Melania Trump as a movie star while announcing a provision in legislation for foster youth independence, crediting her deep commitment to children and describing the related project as the top documentary in nearly 2 decades. He joked about his own status shifting from having a top model to a top movie star as First Lady, but emphasized her genuine care for young people. Elsewhere, Kash Patel appeared on a network aligned with the administration and reaffirmed his belief, unchanged from 8 months prior, that Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide in custody. After examining the released files, many find that conclusion difficult to accept as probable. When asked if he had any second thoughts about how the document release was managed, particularly given the re-traumatization reported by victims and survivors, Patel defended the process. He described it as the most open effort ever by the Justice Department and FBI under Trump's direction, something prior administrations could have pursued but did not. He said they released every page legally permissible after working with Congress, adhering to laws, court rulings, protective orders, and seal requirements, ultimately delivering millions of pages while safeguarding victim privacy and safety. He questioned whether speed could have been improved amid the legal hurdles, but maintained the outcome was handled correctly. There it is, the key moments from that session and related developments. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you're finding value here, please subscribe. We're pushing towards 6 million subscribers. Thank you for joining me today. The pursuit of truth matters now more than ever. Take a look at our latest Truth Over Lies collection at store.midastouch.com. Everything 100% made in the USA by union workers.